Welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. As a reminder, the thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any grand lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, we love seeing you every Thursday night over on Facebook or YouTube land. The chats are always fun. Love interacting with you over there. Just remember, your chats may end up on the show, so watch yourself. As always, if you can't watch us live, catch the replay or in your favorite podcasting app. You know me. My name is John Ruark. I'm a past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. Next up for his introduction, Jason Richards. How's it going, Jason?
It's good. Are you hitting wrong buttons tonight, John?
You know what you do to me.
I know. Jason Richards here, past master of Vacation Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia. Glad to be here.
As you wish. Joe Martinez, how are you?
Wow, there was no intro. It was just boom, Joe Martinez.
That's usually how you enter the room.
And that is how I do life. Yes, Joe Martinez, still worshipful master of Manassas Lodge number 182 in Manassas, Virginia, member of a whole bunch of other things, and as always, damn glad to be here.
Awesome. Robert Johnson, how's it going?
It's going well. Glad to be here. Robert Johnson, past master, Waukegan 78, current sitting secretary at two lodges, Space Novum 1183 and Waukegan 78.
Nice.
Two lifetime appointments. Yes.
Nice.
I guess.
Good man.
And special guest for tonight's episode, that is brother Billy Hamilton. How's it going?
Hey, good evening.
Billy!
Oh, Billy.
So I am Billy Hamilton. I am a past master of Fort Worth Lodge 148 in Fort Worth, Texas, and current master of Texas Lodge of Research.
Excellent. Good to have you on here tonight.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor.
All right. So let's pay some bills and give a special shout out to the patrons who support the show. You guys are awesome, as always. If you want to be a patron or support the show, head over to patreon.com/the Masonic Roundtable. And big news for our patrons this week. Go to the App Store, depending which flavor of device you use. If you want to be cool, use an Android. If you want to be like Joe, use an Apple iPhone. And download the Patreon app where you can actually chat with us live 24/7. And we are going to commit to 24/7 because, we have people in different time zones. Joe never sleeps. So it's going to be great.
Robert never sleeps.
Yeah, good luck to everybody that gets 4 a.m. Joe. You guys are in for
I sleep, but it's more like I take cat naps in the midst of the day.
Or do you do like the old English or like the
I do that.
colonial, right? You kind of like wake up for 4 hours in the middle of the night.
Yeah, not 4 hours.
Read.
Like I'll get up around 3. I'll be up until about 5. I'll go back to bed till about 8.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That sounds like another show topic right there. All right. Let's shift into Tarot Card of the Week. So, what have we got?
What have we got? We have
Dun, da, da, da.
the Millennial Tarot.
Oh, that's so
78
basic.
78
Oh,
cards
and-
for the journey of adulting because the struggle is real. My wife got this for me for my 40th birthday.
And when you open it, it actually doesn't do anything.
Hey-oh.
All the cards are just nothing.
I thought that was the Gen Z Tarot.
Oh, burn.
Gen Z, they like to be the center of attention, but freak out when they're the center of attention.
And so tonight we have
What do we have?
Queen of Feels.
Of the feels.
That's awesome.
That's
Fucking dead.
awesome.
So good.
That's fabulous.
What's the bit at the bottom? So we got Queen of Feels, Mother's Intuition.
What's the subtext there?
Yeah.
Mastering Feminine Energy.
There you go.
Hey, that's pretty sweet.
That is spot on.
This deck is actually quite good.
So that'd be Queen of Cups in a Rider-Waite Smith system. So Queen of Cups is basically your emotionally stable maternal figure, right? So think of the mom that's got it all together, or cool, calm, collective, right? Definitely not flying off the handle. That would be more of like a Knight of Cups, but just the opposite, right?
Yep.
Big mom energy. Yep.
Yep. Absolutely.
I dig it.
That's a good one.
Very cool.
That's a cool one. All right. Well, let's get right into tonight's topic then. So we're going to talk tonight about, as the title says, ancient mysteries and modern masonry with the one Billy Hamilton. So Billy, why do you
Yes,
know
sir.
so much about this?
So this actually comes from, I've been kind of an IT nerd for most of my adult life, right? After about 20 years, I decided to take a break, and I was offered and accepted a position as the general manager of the Grand Lodge Library Museum of Texas. Radical
Nice.
shift, right? But perfect for a Masonic nerd. And so Joel Preston Lightfoot, he's one of the Texas giants, right? There's a couple of grandmasters that live large in Texas Masonry. You have, Sam P. Cochran, Joel P. Lightfoot, and I'd say more recently, Jimmy Wilson. These are kind of our giants, our mythical status grandmasters. As a matter of fact, when you visit our Grand Lodge session, our Grand Chapter, our Grand Council, his influence is still there because he designed the aprons that the Grand Officers wear. Usually, mostly Bromwell's restorations of Masonic geometry. He designed the pillars that are in front, so his influence. You can find
Illinois
monitors.
Mason. He was an Illinois Mason.
He's a transplant, right?
He is. He's been everywhere.
Oh yeah,
He is quite prolific.
yeah.
By
and-
the way.
Sweet
And-
book.
And he loved that book.
Yeah, if you go through there and then
What
compare
book is
with
that
the-
for our audio listeners?
It's Restorations of Masonic Geometry and Symbolry by Bromwell.
Nice.
Yeah, it's currently reprinted by one Kevin Townley of Colorado.
Nice.
Yeah, I think
Sorry,
it's
go
still
ahead, Billy.
available I think it's still available for sale on the Grand Lodge website. At least it was when I last looked at it. Yeah, but
You can't find it. There's like 90,000 pages on the Grand Lodge of Texas website. Like if you ever want something, you're never gonna find it. It's like McCoy's. You got to go through 4,000 pages.
yeah, and I'm sorry, did I say Grand Lodge of Texas? I meant Grand Lodge of Colorado. So
Oh well, they're awesome. Okay,
yeah,
Okay.
it's on
That's
their
all.
website.
I retract my last.
Yeah, but so he lives large in Texas Masonry, and while I was there, so we have a vault with like our special collections, and there's amazing stuff in there. You'd find like a first edition of Eliphas Levy's History and Ritual of Magic. It's in there. You'll find
Not anymore. You won't.
Yeah. Well, that's why I don't say exactly where. It's yeah. So the location is hidden, but there's all sorts of amazing stuff in there. And so during my downtime, the little bit of downtime I had in between, caring for, the air conditioning unit went out, or we had a leak from a pipe or something like that. During my downtime, when I wasn't taking care of that, I would go in there and just look around. And about halfway in the room, there were a couple of nondescript boxes. And on the outside, it just said Joel P. Lightfoot. And so I pulled them out, took them to my desk, and started digging through them. And it was mostly typewritten, in some cases handwritten documents that were Joel P. Lightfoot's personal papers. They were donated by his wife after he passed away in 1950, in just hundreds and hundreds of pages. So I started going through them, scanned them, started transcribing them, and I noticed that there was a series that was in here, right? There were about 10 presentations they gave at the Fort Worth Scottish Rite Club then, because it wasn't a valley yet of its own. It was a club out of the Dallas Valley. But that met in the same temple that my Masonic Lodge meets. So there's a connection there. And he delivered these presentations over the course of about, he would deliver one a month. So over the course of 10 months, he did this extraordinary presentation following what he believed was the journey of Freemasonry, starting with the Indus Valley, right, and the Brahmin religion. Then he believed that it influenced the Chaldeans, they influenced the Egyptians, and then Moses, being an initiate of the Egyptian mysteries, took it with him to the Hebrews, and then with the Jewish diaspora, that it spread throughout Europe and became encoded in Masonry. So as I'm digging through this, I'm like, this is amazing. This is, some of this is dated. I'm not going to lie. Some of this has been disproven, but it's amazing to see a guy who's trying to make these connections 100 years ago. And so I took the papers, I started organizing them, and I started talking to a couple of people about it and found a publisher that, was interested in publishing it. And so here we are. And now it's a book under Westphalia Press.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that journey like that you just described. Let's just, because again, you set it up perfectly where, you're there, you're surrounded by awesome Masonic texts, right? And that'd be a great job to have just for the downtime alone, right? Where you can just go exploring, right? And then you find these little nuggets of awesomeness that, have been sitting there kind of off by themselves. Really, no one's done any research with them for a while. And you find this thing and it speaks to you. That's the first thing, right? You wouldn't have started transcribing these if it didn't have some sort of connection with you. And again, you mentioned even just some of the historical connections with your lodge, but then you start compiling it, you start trying to find themes, and you're finding like a lot of cool research, education, Masonic education that comes out of this that you want to share with the world. So again, I applaud you for the time and effort that it took to compile all this together, make it make sense, make it flow together, because I'm sure there's just a lot of research, things that you had to sift through. But yeah, and I'll echo you on that too, because when Robert and I did Plummer's work about the Master's Word, again, same thing. Man of his time, there are some things that either science has proven false or some of his assumptions were wrong at the time. But that's part of discovery. That's part of learning, right? And what he just went with the assumptions he had at the time, try to make some connections, and and we learn as society moves on. So again, thank you for doing that. So you basically annotated some of Lightfoot stuff along the way too, correct?
There were a couple of annotations in there. I'll be honest, not as many as there needs to be. I was talking to one of the members on our committee on education for Grand Lodge, and he's already putting the bug in my ear about there needs to be a complete annotated edition of this to see where he got it from, because some of it is pretty obvious. Like one of the annotations I have there is, this section was lifted straight from Blavatsky's Isis Unveiled. He was hugely influenced by Blavatsky, so it wouldn't surprise me if there's tons of stuff in there that she had previously written on, or other theosophical writers. He relies a lot on Pike, but he also goes back into some of the writers who talked about biblical topics in the 1600s, 1500s. So he pulled from a wide range of sources. And what's cool is his library, his personal library, forms a core part of the esoteric section of the Grand Lodge of Texas library. And what I used to love doing is, if I found something that seemed a little weird, right, like QBL from Frater Akkad, I would open it up and there would be Joel P. Lightfoot's book plate on the inside.
Nice. Okay, wait. Let me stop you there for a second.
Right.
The Grand Lodge of Texas has an esoteric section of its library.
They do, actually.
On Masonic conduct.
No. It's none of
Someone
them.
bring charges.
They don't have any records or LPs, so there's no music involved. So it's okay.
There's no music there.
Actually, that's not true. I found a box full of LPs and I pulled it out.
What?
Yeah. And but you know, it's not. It is a public section, but yes, there's music actually. And yeah, it's very interesting. It's from like the 19, geez, I would say maybe the 1960s.
What?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Billy is
Billy's-
world shattering tonight. That's what he's
Yes.
doing.
So, but it was not
shattering
music
world.
used in ritual. So
Breaking
you know,
paradigm. Okay.
that's
So
the difference.
I'm curious, Billy, as you're going through this, right? You're putting this book together. Obviously, you have an interest in what it covers. Like sometimes people go, "Oh, this is fascinating. I have to tell the world about this. This book cannot be lost under history for whatever reason." A lot of times it's just preservation based because this person was so cool. Like we've heard of Lightfoot, but maybe we've not seen the depth of his writing. But in your case, I am curious to know, did you find yourself, like as John and I go through George Plumer's work when we were doing Master's Word, as we went through it, we're looking for and hoping not. Like we're always on the edge of our seat finding something cringeworthy, right? Like,
Okay.
That's so true.
You know,
Ooh,
and
what
then
do we
it-
do about that?
and then it never happened because he was like super liberal of his time and like really kind of avoided a lot of those kinds of things. And I guess I'm just wondering, like, as you're reading through Lightfoot's work there, did you find yourself, two-part question. One, did you find yourself like waiting for those like kind of weird moments and then going, gee whiz, in this kind of weird climate, what happens if I republish something with words like this? And two, did you find yourself going, this is fascinating and like it's of your own interest? Like you were super interested in exactly what he was talking about.
Never annotate your heroes.
Yeah.
So I do have to say, you know, in respect to Joel P. Lightfoot, the person, I didn't really encounter anything, you know, that shook my view of him as a person. And I know exactly what you're talking about. I went through, you know, so I did a paper on Sam P. Cochran, the other, you know, one of the other giants I spoke about, you know, and he was very active in the 1910s, 1920s. What's interesting is he was actually elected Grand Master at the same annual communication that Joel P. Lightfoot was elected Grand Junior Warden. So that's where it's mind blowing for me to figure those two people in the same grand line, right? But going through Cochran's papers, you know, I found a couple of things that were, you know, questionable, you know, and you have to ask yourself, you know, and some of these were not stuff that he wrote, but that he received, you know, in turn. And it's like, you have to ask yourself, how much do you support this or not? You know, but being
Well,
of that time.
what was the context of the time too? I think it's really really important to put everything in that original context. It doesn't make it right, say, but it at least, you know, helps shape the entirety of the story.
Yeah. Yeah. And in Cochran's case, right, you know, I came across there's a postcard from a company that he was an investor in, you know, and it had, you know, it had a child of color in there and, you know, a little bit of a racist overtone to the content, right, to the text of the postcard, you know, and it makes you wonder, you know, it's not from Cochran, but it's to Cochran and it's for a company that he's an investor of. And so you have to ask yourself, you know, you can't say one way or the other, but it does make you question that. I didn't find anything like that in Joel P. Lightfoot stuff. He was very much the material that we received, you know, from Mrs. Lightfoot after he passed away was very focused on just masonry. You know, there was not much. I mean, he was very much a patriot. He was very much into, you know, masonry, but it was interesting. The one thing I was looking for was I wanted to find a stack of dues cards because, like I said, in his personal library, he has the weirdest stuff. And he has a complete set of the Equinox, Aleister Crowley's, you know, series of books that he published. You know, those he has a complete set there, and so I was always looking for something to see if he was involved in any actual magical orders because so much of his work, so much of his personal library was dedicated to that.
Well, and and I think you and I spoke about this when I first saw the book, which was a couple of months ago. This is a very cool grandmaster that Texas had. Like we can't underscore that enough, right? It's number one, he was young, right? How old was he when he was grandmaster?
So he was 42, but if you look at his picture, he looks like he's like 12.
Yeah, absolutely.
Super young. Very
and
young.
Super young. And exactly, you mentioned Blavatsky before. I mean, he lived in the time of the great theosophists and that spiritual awakening that was happening, especially here in the United States. You know, a lot on the West, you know, you always hear about the West Coast folks. West Coast people were doing awesome things and chilling and doing magical stuff. So it's cool that some of that awesomeness made its way to Texas.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and you know, I'll repeat the thing I told you after I read the book the first time. I was completely in awe that this was written by the Grand Master of Texas, you know what I mean? Or these speeches were given, because you don't go to Grand Annual Communication anywhere in the country and hear talks like you published here in this book from a Grand Master.
Yeah, that level of conversation that goes a layer deeper than the surface stuff you usually hear today.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, nowhere in his work that you published did we hear about, you know, per capita raises and you know,
green bean dinners.
Yeah, having crab roasts and, you know, or barbecues, whatever y'all do in Texas. You know, in order to spur membership. You saw none of that. You just
did you say crab roasts?
Whatever the heck it is. Yeah, I don't know.
Wow. Yeah, I thought you were here in Texas just recently, Joe. That's
I was, and it is not what you do. I had a lovely time in Texas, and so everybody on the interwebs knows Billy Hamilton is the most gracious host I have ever had.
Did you go to a crab roast while you were there, Joe?
No, I didn't. But you know, I was trying to relate to the people, you know, and do what they do, you know. So
they fancied it up. They had broasted crab.
No, we had like half a cow or something served to us.
Yes, I think I had half a cow last time I was in Texas. But yeah, man, I'm just in awe of the things that Brother Lightfoot wrote about and was passionate about, and he got to share with everybody. Because again, it is so anathema to today's view of administrative masonry. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I feel like, and he was very much involved in that too. He was the chairman of the Grand Lodge Jurisprudence Committee for years, right? Until he died. So, I mean, you're talking about maybe 30, 35 years of just involved in Grand Lodge legal aspects. You know, and not only that, also at the Grand Encampment level, because he was a 4-star. So he was, you know, a past Grand High Priest, past Grand Master of the Grand Council, past Grand Commander, the Grand Commandery of Texas. And he was on the Jurisprudence Committee for the Grand Encampment. So he was very much involved with the day-to-day minutia business. But you can tell that wasn't really, I mean, obviously he was dedicated to it because he did it for so long. But his real passion was trying to connect these dots. Where did Masonry come from? You know, what are the influences upon it? You know, and you see that in the book, he connects to a lot of the ancient mysteries. And what's really cool about it is he goes beyond that. And he says, well, yeah, there were mysteries, but there were lesser mysteries and greater mysteries, right? And so you're brought into the lesser mysteries, you know, like being raised to the sublime degree of a master mason, right? You're open, the door is open to you, and you got to take it upon yourself to then dive into the greater mysteries. And so that, I think, is what he was very much into, is looking for the greater mysteries. I found a notebook of his where he used to write his own notes. And so this was a man that, as he's reading a book, he would keep a notebook up by his side, and he would say, oh, that's an interesting thing about Moses, you know, Isis unveiled, page 274 or whatever. And so as he's writing, he is right, or as he's reading, he's looking for these connections, and you know, he's very much investigating it. And as I write about a book in the intro, almost like he's putting together a case for us, because he was an attorney. He was Attorney General of Texas when he was selected to Grand Junior Warden. And so that's, you could tell that's what he was really interested in. So
yeah, sounds very much like what Pike would do, like when he would try to like pull all these sources together. Some better, some worse, but
right.
Yeah.
Well, you got me thinking as you were saying that, because I mean, one of the big differences, and please chime in, anybody, not just Billy, if I'm wrong, is you don't hear too much. He touches on Egypt. Lots of people during that time wrote about Egypt and its relation to Freemasonry, things like that. Obviously, we get the Judeo-Christian flavorings in there, right?
Mhm.
But he talks about, and you have it in a decent sized section in the book, about India and the Indus Valley and stuff. And that's not a place where a lot of your traditional ancient mystery Masonic authors go to, is back to the Indus Valley. You know what I mean? And we tend to forget, or we don't care, or we don't watch the History Channel enough to know that, that was one of the oldest civilizations that was out there, was the Indus Valley civilization, way before Egypt, way before Northern Africa, way before, what ended up becoming the Jewish people, in the ancient Near East. They were there for thousands of years beforehand and doing stuff. And we as Masons don't hear about it that much, right? So I find it interesting that Lightfoot kind of honed in on that and did a bit of research on that as well.
Oh yeah, he even talks about that they had a 3-degree system just like we do, in the Brahmin priesthood. And it's interesting because he does talk a lot about it, right? And he even has a table. It appears because there is one talk on there that in the book that I feel he covered previously, but there's so much new material that I feel it kind of stood alone as a chapter. But he talks about the days of Brahma, right? And he even is trying to figure out, how does this work into, it's almost like he's trying to reconcile the biblical story of creation with what new science was telling him at the time about geological ages. And he even breaks down like a day of Brahma is like 1 point something billion years. And he goes through this very complex calculation of how he got to that. But when you think about it, it makes sense, right? If you have seven days and each day is 1.5 billion years, it's like you actually get pretty close to the age of the earth.
Math checks out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting approach. Yeah. So for you, again, you covered a lot in the book, but like, what was a thread or a theme or a subject that really jumped out for you, like that you really or passionate about or were really interested in?
So for me, I thought it was interesting how he connected the different alphabets together, because he connects. So there's a lot of writers that do connect the Hebrew alphabet and the Greek alphabet, but he took it even further, and he connected the Druidic alphabet, which is something I've never seen before, and tries to say, they all have a common theme. And actually, he went with, it's based on the different trees and the shapes of the leaves, influence the shapes of the characters. So that was very cool. I think, though, out of the entire thing, so the esoteric stuff is very interesting. How he uses the Great Pyramid of Giza to come up with the Egyptian royal cubit, and then that through Moses was transferred to become the Hebrew cubit, the sacred cubit. So that was very cool to see. But my personal point of it is there's one section in there where he talks about being a master mason, and he says it's something that cannot be given. One person cannot make another person a master mason. It's something that is a becoming. It's an unfoldment. It's something that.
And why do we do Masons on site?
Wait. Dude, I love that. I love that quote, though, because it reminds me of a paraphrase of Mark Twain, where it says, "You become a Mason twice: once when you're raised, and again when you know why."
Oh yeah, yeah, and he's very much of that school. And yeah, the Mason on site, I don't know, because I don't think we do that here in Texas. But it's very cool to say, you know what, we can open the door for you, but you have to make the journey. And he even talks about there's a lot of brothers that are made Masons, but they never really understand what Masonry is. And I think that spoke to me a lot, because
sorry, my mic was muted. You get applause.
Slow clap.
Yes.
Yeah, but he talks about we do a disservice because we don't take the effort to educate, or at least expand the mind of the members that join. And I think you see that not just with Lightfoot, but a lot of people back, even during this golden age of Freemasonry, right? And we have, people beating down the door trying to join. And you see a lot of the more esoteric Masons say, well, wait a second, so we get them in, but what are we doing then? What are they doing? How does it benefit them? How do they benefit us? And it's a very interesting question, and it's something that I think he hits head on.
I find it super interesting. I thought I stopped paying attention for a second, and I thought you were talking about today.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Like, if Lightfoot were here today, either in Texas or in the state of Masonry in the United States, based on your research, how do you think he would feel? How do you think he would approach the current state of affairs?
I think he was very much in touch with, there needs to be a reason for what we do and why we do it. There is not just I think it's across the board in just about every jurisdiction. Lodges, not just grand lodges, but lodges are so interested with getting people that often they overlook stuff, right? They don't get to know the candidates, or they take all sorts of shortcuts. I think he would be very. My personal feeling, just by reading his comments,
Sure. Yeah,
is I don't think he'd be happy with that at all, right? If at the time when we have millions of Masons, he's like, well, wait a second, what are we doing? What are you learning? Why are you, why do you come to lodge? How can you call yourself a Mason if you don't do the research? And today, when it's like, hey, you just walked into our door, we already have a pre-filled petition for you. Here you go. I think he would be very upset with that.
and he has a pendant body, like petitions ready to go right after your racing too. So
Okay,
yeah.
he's got your Shriner's petition right
Bam!
next to your next to your card.
Scottish Rite, York Rite, bam.
Yeah, I remember actually, and that's been going on here for decades. I mean, not just in Texas. I was initiated in Oklahoma, in Lawton, Oklahoma. My father was military, so I was initiated in Triangle Lodge 548 in Lawton, Oklahoma. Then I moved to take a job at Intel in Arizona, so I was passed and raised through an Arizona lodge. And I remember walking out of my Master Mason's degree, just brand new Master Mason, right? Maybe 10 minutes, and there's two guys waiting for me at the door, York Rite and Scottish Rite, and they didn't have the shrine because this was 98. So back then you had to
do one or the other.
Yeah,
You had to work for it.
yeah. Today it would be 3 petitions, not just the 2.
Man.
We can do that in a one-day conferral. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
Yeah. So, but yeah, one thing I did want to bring up though is Lightfoot was also different than a lot of grandmasters. I've had this conversation recently with we have a fair number of grandmasters that what have they done personally or professionally, and not to talk bad about anybody, but there was a time when it was kind of a position of standing, right? And Lightfoot was Attorney General for Texas, and he raised antitrust cases. And what I love about him is, so not only is he this great esoteric Mason, but he was a pit bull apparently in the courtroom. He was brought in as an assistant attorney general for the state of Texas, and he won a case which was the largest fine in an antitrust case. Actually, it was the largest fine ever levied against a company in the state of Texas up to that time. It was like $1.7 million, which was a huge thing, against Pierce Waters oil company. Yeah. And it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they still won. But Lightfoot, being the person he was, when it came time for the company to pay the fine, he made them pay it in cash. So the newspapers of the day actually have the story of Lightfoot standing there in a courtroom in Austin with the table in front of him, and these executives and attorneys from the Pierce Waters oil company going and just dropping stacks of cash and gold coins You know, and you could tell they were trying to make a big production out of it. To kind of
I would have paid him pennies out of spite.
Oh yeah, bring in
Sacks
the
of
dump
pennies.
trunk.
Yeah.
But that was the type of guy he was. He's like, you know what? This is no nonsense. Don't give us a check or a bank draft or something like that. We want cash.
You got to feel it.
That's the type of person I think he was, and I think that's probably the type of Mason he was as well.
That's phenomenal. But to your point, I think that because I know you were messaging me about that, and I found that super interesting. I don't think we hold either ourselves or the people themselves hold these offices in the same regard as were done 100 years ago, right? Like, you know, we don't expect our Grand Lodge officers to be the elder statesmen in the community and things like that. You don't see that anymore, right? Because they don't do it, you know, or we belittle it, right? It's like, oh, you're a Mason, I'm going to keep it quiet and hush hush, and I'm only going to show up once a month and eat my green beans and do my thing quietly, and you know, whereas during his time, people were proud of it, you know, and so I think it's a double-edged sword, right? There's a pride thing where some of us don't espouse the fact that we're Masons without being braggadocious about it, right? Or you know, wearing absurd amounts of regalia and lapel pins and things like that. But you know, in that same token,
And rings.
and lots of rings,
Skull
whatever.
bracelets and
Okay. You got to accentuate when you have nothing up here, guys. Okay. So
Masonic hats.
Masonic hats galore, again, to protect you from the glare. But yeah, no, I think it's something that we do in hush, dark places more so nowadays than we did 100 years ago, right? Like, you know, one thing that you guys do that I see every year posted on Facebook is you have that big to do at the Alamo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where a whole bunch of Masons come and everybody's there, and it's, you know, you guys are memorializing that day, and it's community and it's Masons and it's everybody. And it was probably 100 times more so things like that back then, you know, where now it's very few and far between. Now you get 6 dudes in a float doing a parade, you know, it's like, oh yeah, we showed up for the community.
Yeah. No, and here in Texas, actually, I think we're blessed because there's so much that happened in Texas history. I mean, Masons, you know, were a part of a lot of different states and countries' histories, but here in Texas, especially so, because we do have the Alamo, you know, and we do the Goliad observance as well, right? You know, some of the other notorious battles or massacres in, you know, San Jacinto, and most of those guys, most of the officers were Texas Masons. You know, every president of the republic, every vice president, every secretary of state, and a fair number of the legislature during the Republic of Texas were all Masons. As a matter of fact, our Grand Lodge was formed in the Texas Senate, the original one in Houston, and met there for a couple of years until they were finally able to build their own building. So Texas Masonry.
Didn't you guys do a degree a couple of years ago in that building, or
Oh, yeah.
like in the Texas
The
legislature?
Austin State Capitol.
Yeah.
Did they have a crab roast while they were there?
Crab roast.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
no.
Not a good degree then.
Correct
Yeah,
answer.
I think if it didn't end with a barbecue, I think some people would have been, you know, kicked out of town, run out on the rail. Yeah,
Expelled from masonry.
that's right. Yeah, because that's how we do it. It's got to have
Unmasonic
meat.
conduct.
So we got a question in the chat here. Do you know much about Lightfoot's educational background? You talked about his vocational background.
Mm-hmm.
What about his educational background?
So actually, I was looking into that because I'm giving a talk on Lightfoot, the man, at one of the lodges next month. And so he was born in 1873. He graduated from, I mean, it was called college, and a lot of people assumed it was the college, but it was actually the school. You know, it was kindergarten through 12, or well, first grade through 12. And they called it a college. And so people assumed he graduated from college in 1890 at the age of 17. Wow, amazing. But it wasn't. He graduated from high school. And he became a night telegraph operator and studied law while working overnight at the telegraph for the railroad. And he did that. I'm not sure when he actually passed the bar exam. And I don't see any indication that he went to an actual university. I think he actually studied law, like he, you know, you didn't always have to get a legal education at an institution. You used to be able to study under an attorney and then stand for the bar.
He did the Lincoln approach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm not sure exactly when he was admitted to the bar, but he was elected Camp County attorney for Camp County in Texas in 1898. So somewhere between 1890 and 1898, he passed the bar. Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly, you know, his education other than that. You know, we just have the high school that he graduated from. I've been looking and I haven't been able to find any other records of, you know, he didn't go to Texas A&M or the University of Texas or anything like that. That would be interesting, but it looks like he did. He became an attorney through kind of the long, hard working process.
Well, it's good he didn't go to one of those two colleges, because then half the Texas Masons would hate him and the other would love him, right? Because
Right.
it's very polarizing.
Of
Yes.
course.
Yeah. See, he was smart. Even back then, he was avoiding the politics.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Very cool.
But yeah, no, he was an interesting guy. Like I said, he was Camp County attorney for. He served 3 terms before he was appointed the assistant attorney general in, I believe, 1905. Became the attorney general for the state of Texas, appointed by the governor in 1910, and served for 3 years in that position before he left, started his own law firm, and then, yeah, and that was pretty much his life, right?
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So no indication of other schools, though.
Well, before I forget, I do want to make sure we get a chance to plug the book, because we've talked so much about it and talk about Lightfoot's past. So let me share my screen here so people can find the book on. Oh, wait, sorry, wrong tab. I got the wrong tab up here.
Crab roast.
We can have it on Amazon, right? You do have it listed there.
Absolutely. Or you can get it through Westphalia Publishing directly from them as well.
All right. And how do they find that URL?
So actually that's yeah. Dang it, I'm put on the spot.
Yeah, I know. I put you on the spot there, especially throwing this curveball at the last minute.
Hurry up, Billy.
We'll observe this Joe Martinez meme while we're at it. But some people like to, you know, go right to the publisher, so it's worth the time to go and support the local publisher.
Yeah, so it's at westphaliapress.org. That's WESTPHALIA press.org.
Yeah, there we go.
It's not a Memento Mori calendar in your background.
It might be.
Okay. Call
All right,
back
there
to
you go. Just
last
published. Woo! Nice. So there you go. And I have to find Ancient Mysteries. It's in there. There it is. Nope, wrong one. You're
Not
on there.
good at this internet
The other
thing.
Ancient Mysteries.
There you go.
Yeah, I didn't realize, you know, and I selected it because that's a phrase from the actual book. That was something he actually wrote. He actually talked about the ancient mysteries and how they relate to modern masonry. And so that's why I used that as a title. And then once it was published, and I went to Amazon and I saw it, I'm like, oh, there's another book already with that title.
There's only supposed to be one Ancient Mysteries. All right,
That's right.
good.
It's going to be like Highlander. We're going to have to track down the other book.
There can only be one.
Right.
Awesome. Well, very, very cool. Yeah, and I see people sharing that on the comments as well. So that's super awesome. Any last parting words on what inspired you or any other takeaways? I guess one last question I had for you related to that is, who is this book for, right? Because there's lots of different Masons that read different books for different reasons. Who would be the target audience for this specific book?
People who go to crab roasts.
Crab roasts, Cindy.
Yeah, I think it would be for if you were interested in if there was something more, right? And if there was something to the meanings of Masonry, I think this would be for you. It's some of it gets very technical, so it may not be the first book that you look for, but if you are trying to figure out, well, this feels like there's a lot of stuff that we have that feels like Kabbalah, and so he doesn't necessarily talk about Kabbalah, but he talks about the how the mysteries passed through Israel, before it came on to Europe. So this is a way to say, you know what, yeah, there could be some Jewish mysticism in our ritual. If you were interested, there's some things that there's astrological orientation to some of the rituals that we have, and this is a way to you can look at this book and say, you know what, yeah, there is something, because the Chaldeans and the ancient Magi, were very much into astrology, and that could have somehow gotten in there. So if you're looking for a historical journey through symbolism, I think this would be for you. Especially if you're already familiar with Lightfoot through his commentaries at the end of his monitor, which are fantastic. If you haven't had a chance to pick that up, I think you can get Lightfoot's commentaries or his monitor with the commentaries in the back. Pretty inexpensive on eBay.
For us who don't speak Texas or crab roast, can you tell us what Lightfoot's monitor is?
Yeah, so it was the actual. So we haven't had a code book, but we've always had, until recently, but we've always had a monitor that had the open portions, right? So the prayers that could be given in public, there are some open portions of the ritual, and it talks about the tactics of the ritual, right? The circumambulation, why we do that, what it means, how many times you're supposed to do it, and so forth for each degree. The monitor was the book that we had that codified all of that. And Lightfoot was in charge of one of the revisions. And that's why it's called Lightfoot's Monitor. But in the back, it's got a commentary in there where he goes into astrology, and he talks about the astrological layout of the lodge, complete with diagrams. He talks about the star and what it means. He goes very much deep into the symbolism that is in our ritual that we a lot of times we just kind of gloss over, or we don't think about too much. And so if you have the chance to pick up that book, I know I've talked to Robert Davis, told me that it's one of his favorite monitors, from all the jurisdictions.
Wow.
Is it still the one in use, or has it been replaced by later ones?
No, it was replaced, I think, in 1982. It was replaced in Jimmy Wilson's year, actually.
Boo.
But the commentaries, the Grand Lodge of Texas actually has the commentaries as a separate printed document that you can get.
Wow.
And I think even a lot of Texan Masons don't know that it's available to the Grand Lodge.
Nice. Awesome.
I'm going to buy it right now.
I was going to say, yeah, I know some guys that would be very interested in reading those.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no.
If we only knew a guy at the library who could hook us up.
Yeah, I'm not there anymore. Unfortunately, I'm now a data analyst. I was lured away by money, and it was enough that I couldn't say no.
Wow.
Well, it's nice to eat once in a while,
Yes.
Yeah. When the kids need braces,
helpful.
it's like, I think I can do that.
Can't have Panera every day, working at the library,
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Final question of the night, which is, and we'll save you for last, Billy, or next to last. Let's see. If Lightfoot were here today, what would you like to ask him or pick his brain about?
So I would really like to know about.
You're supposed to go last.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, take it away. This is your moment. Let it shine, man. Let's go.
Do it.
See, that's how
He was
enthusiastic
He was so excited. Did you see that? Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what.
No. Okay, I'll wait until I'm last. I'll wait my turn with patience. So, sorry.
Alrighty then. Well then, So all right, Joe, what do you think?
Crab roast. Thank you for my forever emoji. I will swap them out on my phone. First of all, big thank you to Brother Billy for coming on. I absolutely love you. I adore you. And I cannot speak highly enough about how awesome of a Mason and a person you are. So everybody knows now in Facebook land and YouTube land and all the interwebs that Billy Hamilton is an awesome, awesome dude.
Second
and thirded, yes. But so I got to read this book, as soon as it came out, and Billy was gracious enough to send me a copy. I absolutely loved it. Again, I was just blown away by the words that were spoken, because these were given as presentations, a lot of them, by a grandmaster in a jurisdiction who was passionate about the history and the allegory and the symbolism of Masonry. Again, that's not the usual fare that you get from grandmasters. And that kind of stinks, because I think Freemasonry would be a lot more awesome if we got that from the top down approach. But so if Brother Lightfoot were here, or Most Worshipful Brother Lightfoot, as we should call him, if he were here, I think I would ask him, the big why. Why does this fascinate you so much? What was it that you found in craft masonry that led you down this road? Like, we all have that big why, or that big moment of like, I'm interested in this because of this. And I would just have to ask him, why, what piqued your curiosity, or what was it during your degrees or being a member of a lodge that spurred that interest to start to dip your toe in the esoteric side of things, because it's for some people, it's a very lonely road. And it's not something you get to talk about at the dinner table every night with your family and 45 kids. Yeah, I think that's what I would ask him. Why, and what spurred his, yes, that's you. What spurred his interest, and if he liked going to crab roasts. So that's what I would ask him.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe.
Thank
Jason.
you.
So the question I would ask Brother Lightfoot is, what, if anything, would you adapt for the Freemasonry of today, and why?
And music.
When you look at, especially like oral traditions, you can, from the fragments that are actually written down, you can see minor adaptations to make them a little bit more relevant for the audience that's hearing them at the time. And so with the ancient mysteries and all of the esoteric goodies that Lightfoot devoted a lot of his research to, I'd be interested in how he might, in whatever adaptations he might make to tweak the relevance to like today's organization.
There's no innovations in masonry, Jason. Sorry.
Just a Master Mason's degree.
Just all the ones since the 1750s.
That's the entire like speculative masonry thing.
Okay. All right. So I'll allow it. All right, Billy, over to you, and then I'll close us out. So what would you ask him, since you're so well learned and well researched?
I want to know, we see him walk through symbolism in theory. What I want to know is, was he ever a practitioner? Was he a member of any of the magical orders? Because some of his books that are in his collection at the Grand Lodge Library, it leads me to believe that if he was not a practicing ritual magician, he was very interested in it. So it makes me want to ask, did he ever take that step?
Mm-hmm. I love it. That's a great question, because, we've said before that masonry is the outer porch for a lot of other fun side things and fun dependent bodies and other magical orders. So that's awesome. Yeah, that'd be a great one.
It's a gateway drug.
Yeah, I love it. That closes it out for tonight. Again, thank you very, very much for coming on. Really good conversation. Definitely everyone go check out and get a copy of that book and take a peek inside of what one Texas Grand Master's viewpoint of Masonry was. So yeah, for me, what I would ask is kind of what, I mean, we've talked a little bit about, what would he say today about today's Freemasonry, right? But I guess in a positive spin, how would you reshape Masonry? How would you bring back some of the, the philosophical and esoteric side of Masonry based on what you know, based on all the work and dedication he put into the craft? Like, how would he would slowly shape Freemasonry into a different craft, or at least one that he envisioned that it all relates to? So that would be my spin on that, is to say, how do you take it where it is today and shape it into something a little bit different? Keep the traditions, keep the ritual, but make it something that, as you said in the very beginning, right, that is something that is special, that people work hard for, that they contemplate on, and make it their own. So super awesome show. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Have a good night.
And keep searching for more light.
Wow.
Nailed it.
Keep searching for more light.